Pay close attention to me right now because I'm about to reveal something you probably never stopped to think about. Your own brain is a liar. Yes, the most sophisticated machine in the universe, the one that carries all your knowledge and memories, has a dangerous trick. It makes you believe you've learned something when in reality, you haven't learned anything at all. But relax. Don't go picking a fight with your husband or wife just because their brain is a liar too. That's a factory defect, not bad intentions. If it weren't, nobody would survive a family dinner. But now, let's get serious. Most of the time, you don't actually forget what you learned. The truth is, you never really understood it. It was your brain trying to trick you into giving up and going off to do something easier. And this is exactly where the secret lies. The brain prefers to save energy and stick to simpler things. So when you take a complex subject and simplify it, you're speaking the language it understands. It's like turning a scary monster into a child's toy. Suddenly, what seemed impossible becomes interesting, even fun, and accessible. The brain gets curious. It stops running away. Think about this. If you try to memorize the formula for gravity, you'll get lost in symbols. But if you translate it into something simple, gravity is the way the universe keeps things from flying off. Your mind opens up. Complexity becomes clarity. The brain would rather have you put in as little effort as possible, make you think you've understood, and then push you to spend energy on immediate survival tasks. The problem is, in the modern world, this trap is deadly for anyone who truly wants to learn. Imagine this. You read a chapter in a book, close it, and think, okay, I got it. But the truth is you didn't. You just recognized the words. And the brain loves this trick. It confuses familiarity with understanding. It's like looking at an old photo. You recognize the image, but that doesn't mean you know the story behind it. Recognition is not knowledge. That's the first point I want you to take away. Don't trust that comfortable feeling of, I already understand. Whew. It's an illusion. Now think about this. If the brain loves the easy path, why try to learn in the hardest possible way? When you study a subject filled with jargon and complicated phrases, your brain quickly gives up. It hates meaningless effort. The secret is to simplify, to turn the complicated into simple, the obscure into clear, the heavy into light. When you simplify, you're not dumbing it down. You're making it accessible to your own thinking. It's like translating a foreign language into your native tongue. Suddenly, everything makes sense. But here's the problem. Schools and universities teach us the exact opposite. They throw formulas, dates, and ready-made definitions at us, expecting us to memorize and repeat. And memorization is the biggest mistake of all. The brain doesn't like memorizing. It likes understanding. When you try to just memorize, what happens? You forget. It's inevitable. The information walks in through the door, but it never finds a place to stay. You memorize it for the test, but after a few days, poof, it's gone. And this is where one of the greatest secrets comes in. If you want to truly learn, you need to teach. Teach even when you don't know it perfectly. Teach by talking to yourself, in the shower, in the car, in front of the mirror. Teach to a child, to a friend, even to someone imaginary. When you try to explain, the brain immediately notices the gaps, notices what's missing, and starts working to fill those holes. It's in this effort of turning the complex into the simple that real learning happens. The brain only learns when it's forced to organize, to connect, to transform. If you only read and repeat, it keeps lying to you, pretending you know. But when you explain, even imperfectly, you force your mind to build a solid structure. It's like laying the foundation of a house. Without it, everything collapses. Now imagine this. You spend hours reading, highlighting, repeating, and when it comes time to actually use what you studied, nothing. Empty. The mind feels like a drawer stuffed with loose papers. And do you know why? Because you're studying the wrong way. The brain doesn't learn from colorful highlights or the false sense that reviewing silently is enough. It learns when it is forced to build, to organize, to transform. And here lies the key to turning any subject into true knowledge. You must be able to explain it as if you were talking to a child. If you can't, it means you haven't understood it yet. And this is the moment when most people realize the big illusion. The mind loves to pretend it knows. It's satisfied with memorized phrases, but it can't recreate the reasoning behind them. The brain likes what's simple. It was built to look for shortcuts. But here's the secret. When you simplify something yourself, you're not just making it easier, you're forcing your mind to organize chaos, to translate confusion into clarity. That's real learning. Want an example? Think about quantum physics. Many people give up the moment they hear the name because they imagine endless formulas and impossible equations. But what if I put it this way? Quantum physics studies the hidden rules that govern the invisible world of particles, which behave in strange, almost magical ways, but still follow their own laws. Suddenly, what seemed unreachable becomes an invitation to curiosity. Or take Einstein's relativity. It sounds impossible, but it's simple. Time is not the same for everyone. Whoever moves faster feels time passing more slowly. It's like being on a bus. To you sitting inside, the clock seems to tick normally, but to someone watching the bus go by, it looks different. That's all relativity is. Time and space change depending on speed. Now think about derivatives in math. Many people freeze when they see the symbols, but simplify it. A derivative is just asking, what's the speed right now? If a car is going 50 miles per hour, the derivative is telling you exactly that, the rate of change at that moment. And DNA? It sounds intimidating, like something only a mad scientist would understand. But in reality, it's just a recipe book inside your body. The letters are the ingredients, and each recipe produces a protein. And proteins are what build everything in you: skin, hair, muscles. Another example, the second law of thermodynamics. Complicated name, but it's really this simple. Everything tends to get messy on its own. A clean room will never magically get cleaner by itself. It always moves toward disorder. To bring order, you have to spend energy. Even complex numbers, which sound scary, are simple. They're just a way of dealing with problems that didn't have answers before, like the square root of a negative number. It's like inventing a new tool in math to solve problems nobody could solve before. Do you see it? What once seemed impossible becomes obvious once you simplify. The brain stops running away because now it understands the logic. The secret isn't memorizing. It's translating the strange into something you already know. And when you simplify and start using the technique of explaining out loud, something magical happens inside your brain. It's like it gets exposed. While you're reading silently, it can pretend it understands. But when you try to put it into words out loud, the lie shows up immediately. You forget. And that's wonderful, because now you know exactly where the gaps in your knowledge are. Picture this. You're in the car trying to explain to a friend how gravity works. If all you've memorized is the phrase, "Gravity is the force that pulls bodies toward the center of the earth," you'll stop there. But when you start to explain it out loud, you realize you don't know why it acts that way, or how it works on other planets. That discomfort is the sign your mind needs to really get to work. Do this all the time. Do it alone. Explain as if you were teaching it to children. And then you might ask me, but what if people call me crazy? Let me tell you something. If someone catches you talking to yourself in the shower about Einstein's theory of relativity, yeah, they might think it's odd. But you know what's even stranger? Studying for 10 years of your life and forgetting it all in 2 weeks. That's the real madness. If they call you crazy, thank them. Say, "Thank you, I'm practicing the same method that won Richard Feynman a Nobel Prize. And you, still repeating things like a parrot?" And flash that victorious smile. Think about it. Which would you rather be? The crazy one who really learns, or the normal one who memorizes today and forgets tomorrow? The person talking to themselves in the car about physics might look eccentric, but the person who never tries keeps falling for their brain's lies. And it doesn't matter if you explain it wrong, if you invent weird analogies, if your explanation sounds childish. That's the whole point. It's by trying to explain things simply, even in silly ways, that you discover whether you truly learned. If the explanation comes out clear, you've mastered it. If you get stuck, you go back, study again, simplify more, and try once more. That cycle is pure gold. Now think about how powerful this is. When you explain out loud, you're not just repeating, you're creating new connections in the brain. You're training your long-term memory, reinforcing neural pathways that won't fade away with time. It's the difference between writing something in the sand and carving it in stone. Now type this in the comments. I won't let my brain fool me. When you write it, it's the beginning of reprogramming your mind. You're declaring that you refuse to be tricked by a lazy brain. From this simple act, you start awakening a new version of yourself, more focused, more disciplined, more unstoppable. Make this your first step toward achieving the impossible. Pay close attention now because this part is decisive. You can simplify a subject. You can explain it out loud, even to your dog. But without effort and discipline, all of it dissolves into thin air. Knowledge has to be watered every day, like a plant that only grows when it's cared for. The problem is that the brain hates continuous effort. It loves immediate reward. That's why you can spend hours on social media but complain about 5 minutes of studying. But true knowledge doesn't come from ease. It's born out of discomfort. Think of a muscle. You don't get strong by lifting a weight once. You get strong by repeating, by feeling the pain, by pushing through the resistance. The brain works the same way. Every time you review, explain again, simplify again, you're lifting mental weights. It's tiring, but that's how the mind becomes sharp. Now imagine this. You simplify Einstein's theory of relativity. You explain it out loud. You spot the gaps. What should you do next? Go back. Read again. Think again. Speak again. That again is what shapes memory. Here's where effort comes in. It's not enough to understand once. You need to consolidate. And here's the uncomfortable truth. If you don't have discipline, you'll never have consistency. And without consistency, there is no lasting learning. The brain needs spaced repetition, constant returns to the subject. It's like sharpening a blade. Each stroke removes an imperfection until the blade can cut through the impossible. Discipline isn't studying when you're motivated. Discipline is studying even when you don't feel like it, even when it's boring, even when the bed is calling your name. That's the moment when you stop being a prisoner of your lazy brain and become its master. So remember this, simplifying opens the door. Teaching out loud is stepping through it, but discipline is what keeps you on the other side. Now let me ask you a question. What makes someone get out of bed before the sun rises? What makes someone endure sleepless nights studying, practicing, failing, and trying again? It's not talent. It's not luck. It's desire. Desire is the invisible fuel that pushes you through any obstacle. If you want to be better, you first have to truly want it. Desire is not a superficial wish. It's when you feel you can't live without it. It's when studying stops being an obligation and becomes part of who you are. But desire needs direction. That's where willpower comes in. Desire is the spark. Willpower is the movement. It's saying, I won't wait for perfect conditions. I'll start now with what I have. Willpower doesn't ask for permission. It acts, even when you don't know the whole path. And above all, you need a purpose. Purpose is the compass. Without it, you run in circles. With it, even the heaviest effort gains meaning. Those who have purpose don't study just to pass a test. They study to transform themselves, to leave a mark, to serve something greater. Imagine this. 2 people are carrying stones. One complains, says it's heavy, says it doesn't make sense. The other smiles because they know they're building a cathedral. The stone is the same, the effort is the same, but purpose changes everything. Do you want to become better? Then feed your desire every single day. Turn that desire into willpower, into practical action, and guide that willpower with a purpose so great that even the hardest days become part of your victory. Because in the end, knowledge isn't just about piling up information. It's about becoming someone capable of achieving the impossible. And only those with burning desire, steady will, and clear purpose ever get there. Now, to make a commitment to yourself, write this in the comments. From today on, I will study, simplify, and teach. That will be your public commitment to true learning. And if this video made sense to you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Remember this, true learning is not in what you read, but in what you can transform inside yourself. Knowledge doesn't change the world just by existing. It changes the world when it changes you. Successful people think differently because they're not worried about other people's judgment. While the world criticizes, they create. While most people are busy protecting their reputation, they're too busy searching for the truth. And here's the key. Thinking differently is not an aesthetic choice. It's an intellectual survival skill. If you think like everyone else, you'll end up with the same results as everyone else. And the average is harsh. Uninspiring jobs, lives with no purpose, routines where people wake up, work, complain, and go to sleep. Nothing more. Is that really living? Or is it just surviving? Pay close attention now, because this may change the course of your life. Think differently or die average. Stop believing what everyone else believes. Stop repeating what everyone else says. Every success story begins with someone who dared to disagree with normality. Not because they wanted to look rebellious, but because curiosity was stronger than the fear of judgment. And it's this curiosity, directed and disciplined, that opens doors the average will never see. So think differently. And if you decide to think differently, prepare yourself for something greater. The freedom to learn anything, to create paths no one has created, to master your own mind. Listen carefully now, because what I'm about to reveal lies behind every genius mind: curiosity. Ordinary people lose curiosity over time. They accept ready-made answers, stop asking questions, stop investigating. They think they already know enough. And that's the moment mediocrity sets in. Now look at the people who truly stood out. Scientists, entrepreneurs, creative leaders. They all had one thing in common. They never stopped asking questions. Even if they didn't understand something, they would ask again and again and again until the answer finally made sense in their mind. This is the first step to thinking differently. Many people are embarrassed to raise their hand and say, "I don't understand," afraid of being criticized. In a classroom, the student who asks too many questions is easily labeled as stupid. But the truth is exactly the opposite. The one who asks questions is one step ahead. The one who questions shows the courage to learn. That's why, if you want to start thinking differently, begin with the simple act of admitting your doubt. The courage to ask is the mark of someone who refuses to remain ordinary. Now pay attention to me, because I'll show you how to truly think differently. Thinking differently is a daily exercise in intellectual freedom. The first step is to do what you love. When you work or study something that sparks passion, your energy multiplies. Normal is waking up tired because you spend energy on activities that don't inspire you. Different is waking up hungry for life because you're investing your time in what makes sense. Ask yourself, if nobody judged me, what would I choose to learn, to create, or to build? That answer points to your true path. Second, protect your mental independence. That means not letting other people's opinions become the filter for what you think or do. Most people fear being criticized, fear being called strange. But remember, everyone who changed the world was ridiculed before they were applauded. Thinking differently always bothers people because it exposes the mediocrity of those who follow the herd. Third, feed your curiosity without fear. Ask, test, explore. That's the fuel of innovation. Don't accept anything just because everyone does it this way. Ask yourself, is there another way? The simple act of questioning already puts you on another level. Fourth, simplify your life to free up energy for the essential. Those who think like everyone else get lost in excess. Those who think differently focus on what matters. If you're exhausted, it's hard to have the clarity to think in a new way. Energy is born from being aligned with purpose, eliminating the unnecessary, and putting strength into what truly moves your life. Pay close attention now, because what I'm about to tell you is one of the mind's biggest prisons, the fear of being different. Most people don't live their own ideas. They live other people's ideas. They're shaped by the opinions of family, friends, society, the media. They spend life trying to please, to fit in, to be accepted. But those who think differently understand something simple. If you always seek approval, you'll never have clarity. To think differently, you must learn to shield your mind against the pressure of the majority. And that starts with a daily exercise. Every time you feel tempted to do something just because everyone does it, stop and ask, does this really make sense to me? Does it bring me closer to what I want? Or does it just make me like everyone else? That simple question is enough to expose the automatic choices that keep you stuck in the average. Remember, life is too short to live dependent on other people's approval. Another point, choose carefully the voices you listen to. I'm not saying ignore everything and everyone, but be discerning. Ask yourself, does this person have results I admire? Do they live what they preach? Or do they just repeat what they've heard? If not, why give their opinion so much weight? Learn to separate constructive criticism from noise. And here's a powerful detail. The courage to stand by your own vision earns respect, even from those who disagree. At first, you may be criticized. You may even be ridiculed. But over time, when results appear, the same people who laughed at you go quiet. Nothing is more convincing than the evidence of a life lived with purpose and authenticity. Thinking differently is swimming against the current. It's bearing the pressure of judgment without giving in. It's choosing the clarity of your conscience over the empty applause of the crowd. And when you train yourself in this, you realize that freedom isn't being accepted. It's living true to what you believe, even if no one claps. Thinking differently isn't an inborn talent. It's a trained habit. You're not born outside the box. You build the box and then learn to break it every day. That takes discipline, and discipline is born from rituals. If you want to stand out, you need to turn curiosity and mental independence into concrete actions that shape how you think. The first ritual is the daily question. Pick any situation in your life and ask, why is this done this way? Don't accept the first answer. Go deeper. Who said it has to be like this? Is there a better, simpler, faster way to do it? When repeated every day, this exercise trains your mind not to settle for ready-made answers. The second ritual is explaining out loud. When you learn something new, don't keep it to yourself. Explain it. Even if it's to the mirror. When you speak, your mind organizes, your ideas align, and the gaps show up. That's the moment you discover if you truly understood. This simple habit will accelerate your ability to learn 10 times more than someone who only reads and repeats. The third ritual is creative review. At the end of the day, take one idea or important concept you learned and recreate it in your own words. Use a metaphor, a story, an example from your life. This act of recreation makes the idea stop being external and become part of you. It's in this act that different thinking begins to flourish. And finally, the ritual of conscious observation. Set aside a few minutes to observe something ordinary and ask yourself, what is no one else seeing here? It could be an object, a situation, even a conversation. This practice trains your eyes to see beyond the obvious. That's how innovations are born, from someone who looked at the ordinary and saw the extraordinary. Those who practice these rituals don't just think differently, they begin to live on another level of perception. And that difference builds up day after day until it becomes an advantage impossible to ignore. But here's the truth. The path of those who think differently is never easy. They are misunderstood, judged, often humiliated. The crowd cannot stand those who break the pattern, because independent thinking exposes the mediocrity of those who prefer to follow the herd. It's easier to call someone crazy than to admit they might have seen something you didn't. But listen, every great person you admire went through this. Galileo was condemned for seeing beyond what the church accepted. Bruce Lee was ridiculed for mixing styles and creating his own philosophy. All of them were seen as too different until the world had to bow to the evidence of what they built. And here's the secret few have the courage to accept. Thinking differently is expensive in the beginning, but it pays dividends forever. The rejection you feel today is the same energy that will fuel your victory tomorrow. This is the path of those who refuse to die average. They choose truth over acceptance, curiosity over indifference, courage over fear. And with that, they build something that lasts, something that inspires, something that cannot be erased. So I tell you, if you want to think differently, be prepared to be misunderstood. Be ready to be criticized. But also be certain that in the end, you will be remembered. Because no one remembers the crowd that merely repeated. History remembers the names of those who dared to be unique. Think differently. Protect your flame. And never bow to mediocrity. Because in the end, you either have the courage to live as an exception, or you accept dying as just another in the average. Now it's on you. I want you to prove to yourself that you've chosen to think differently. Write in the comments, I will never accept dying being influenced. This phrase is more than words. It's a pact with your mind, a declaration that you will not bow to mediocrity. And if you enjoyed this lesson, leave your like. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell, because here you'll keep receiving ideas that will challenge your mind, expand your vision, and accelerate your learning. Remember, those who think like the majority live like the majority, but those who choose to think differently. Many people believe that focus is simply forcing yourself to stare at something for hours. But that's as ineffective as trying to push a wall with your bare hands. Here's the secret. Energy must be channeled, not wasted. Just like light, when concentrated into a laser beam, gains the power to cut through steel, your attention, when directed with relentless precision, has the power to break through any barrier in life. Pay close attention to me, because this can change the way you see yourself. Your brain works like a particle accelerator. Billions of electrical signals are firing every second, colliding, crashing, creating new connections. But without direction, all of that activity is chaotic, scattered, without results. When you learn to create focus tracks, the same way physicists guide beams of particles in straight lines with magnetic fields, what was once confusion turns into organized power. This is the first secret to training your brain like a genius. It's not about thinking of everything. It's about thinking of one thing with such intensity that the world around you disappears. And here is where discipline comes in. Don't confuse discipline with suffering. Discipline is, in fact, the art of simplification. If you can't explain something in a simple way, it means you haven't understood it. The same applies to your life. If what you're doing feels too complicated, it's because you haven't yet found the clarity that generates true focus. So here's the first exercise I want you to do. Choose one goal, just one, and write it down in a single sentence. Simple, clear, and direct. If you can't summarize it, then you don't yet understand what you truly want. Now, take a deep breath and reflect. How many years have you lost trying to embrace everything, when in reality the secret was to reduce? Think of Newton. Think of Einstein. Geniuses who dedicated decades to just a handful of questions, and because of that, they achieved greatness. Your focus is your most powerful weapon. Use it like a laser beam. Your brain is like a telescope. If you point it at nothing, you'll see only darkness, but if you adjust the lens and choose a single star, suddenly the entire universe begins to reveal itself. Focus is exactly that, the ability to eliminate the noise so you can see what truly matters. But here's the real question. How do you develop greater focus? Pay attention, because here's the truth almost no one dares to say. Focus is not something you find, it's something you train, exactly like a muscle. No one is born with unshakable discipline, but anyone can build it. Think of the physicist who spends hours adjusting an experiment. Every tiny adjustment is a victory against distraction. The same applies to you. Want more focus? Create environments where distraction has no place. Remove the excess. Eliminate notifications. Write down exactly what you'll do in the next hour and do only that. Does it sound simple? It is simple, but that's precisely why it works. If you can't create an environment that favors focus, then you don't yet understand your own mind. Training focus is training your mind to choose, and every choice is an act of power. Don't fool yourself. Every time you give in to distraction, you're strengthening the muscle of weakness. Every time you say no to an interruption, you're strengthening the muscle of focus. And here's a practical exercise for you. Every single day, set aside 30 minutes to concentrate on just one task without interruptions. If your mind starts to wander, bring it back, no matter how many times it happens. This is exactly like training physical endurance. At first, it hurts, but then you realize that pain transforms into strength. In just a few weeks, you'll have developed the ability to dive deeply into anything you choose. Remember this: the brain is plastic. It molds itself according to how you use it. If you feed it distraction, it becomes scattered. If you feed it focus, it sharpens like a blade. The choice is in your hands. And now let me tell you something that might sting a little. If you quit just because someone laughed at you, it means you haven't yet understood what inner strength really is. If you stop because you feel tired, it means you still haven't realized that the body can always go further when the mind commands. Focus doesn't grow in times of comfort. It's born when you face pain, sacrifice, and still choose to keep going. That's how steel is made, through fire. Here's a powerful habit for you. Before going to sleep, write down in a notebook, what did I do today that brought me closer to my goal? What distracted me? What could I have done better? This simple act, repeated every day, creates a vigilant mind. It's like a scientist reviewing every detail of an experiment until nothing escapes. Do this for just a few weeks and you will no longer be the same person. The regret of not having lived up to your potential is infinitely heavier than the pain of discipline. The pain of waking up early, of studying when you don't feel like it, of pushing forward when nobody believes in you. That pain is temporary, but the regret of not giving your all is eternal. So make a pact with yourself now. Train your mind like a genius. Become unbreakable. Now imagine this. You're facing a difficult problem, one of those that feels impossible. Most people give up because they see the challenge as torture. But a genius looks at that same problem as if it were a game. That's exactly how great minds transform physics into something fascinating. Physicists don't study out of obligation. They play with concepts. They sketch. They create funny metaphors. And that's why they're able to go so deep. And here lies one of the greatest secrets of humanity about learning. When you enjoy what you study, you don't just learn more. You also train focus and discipline to levels that seem almost superhuman. So what's the difference between someone who quits quickly and someone who dives deep into an idea until they master it? The difference lies in emotion. The one who finds joy in the process doesn't need external motivation, because the very act of studying, practicing, or creating becomes its own reward. This is the key you need to understand. Focus is not sustained by brute force, but by fascination. Want to improve your focus and discipline? Transform every task into an experiment. Ask yourself, how can I make this more interesting? How can I see this problem from a new perspective? By doing this, you activate curiosity, and curiosity is like a magnet for the mind. It pulls your attention without effort. The first rule is not to fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool. That means you can't trick yourself into believing you have focus if you secretly hate the process. The brain rejects what doesn't make sense to it, but when you connect emotionally with what you're doing, focus arises naturally. And every time you practice this kind of playful, creative study, your discipline grows without you even noticing, because discipline stops being a prison and becomes freedom. Discipline is not just about enduring pain. True discipline is being so deeply involved in what you do, so passionate about it, that continuing becomes the most natural path. That is how you create not only unshakable focus, but a mind that learns and expands every single day. And this Right now could be the moment when you decide to change everything. Your mind is your greatest weapon. It's not external resources, it's not luck, it's not what others say. It's your ability to train your brain like a genius, to develop relentless focus, to build discipline even when no one else believes in you. That is what will define how far you can go. Stay with me here because you need to understand this. The world is already full of ordinary people, distracted, trapped in empty routines. But those who decide to master their focus, those who cultivate discipline and curiosity, they become unstoppable. They don't play by the rules, they create the rules. They don't wait for opportunities, they build them. So here's the question. Will you keep being just another face in the crowd? Or will you take command of your mind and transform your life into something extraordinary? Be honest with yourself. How many times have you promised to change, only to give up at the first difficulty? How many times have you let distraction win? That ends today. Make a pact right now. Sacrifice what you must, but never sacrifice your future. Train your brain, sharpen your mind, and success will simply become an inevitable consequence. And I want you to do something right now. Write in the comments, "I am unstoppable," to seal this commitment with yourself. This isn't just a phrase, it's an act of decision. Click subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and hit the like button, because this is only the beginning of a journey that can completely transform your life. This is the moment when you stop living as a spectator and start acting as the protagonist. Remember this. Regret weighs forever, but discipline shapes champion. In your hands lies the power to write a new story. So stand up, take action, and prove to the world and to yourself that your focus is truly unstoppable.
A particle is often treated as the simplest thing physics can talk about. Something small, something localized, something that exists in a definite place and moves through space the way objects do at everyday scales. That assumption feels natural because much of classical physics is built on it. Careful measurement forced that assumption to be reconsidered. Particles did not behave like smaller versions of familiar objects. The more precisely their position was examined, the less their behavior matched the idea of a single, well-defined location. Attempts to track their motion stopped resembling continuous paths and started producing distributions instead. The description that worked in one experimental setup failed in another. That created a problem because physics depends on descriptions that hold across different situations. Instead of acting like tiny solid objects, particles produced statistical outcomes. They generated interference effects. They behaved as if multiple possibilities were involved before an interaction occurred, yet each interaction produced one specific result, a flash, a click, a mark on a detector, something extended through space, something registered at a single location. Both features appeared in experiments. Removing either one broke the agreement between theory and observation. The meaning of particle had to change. A particle came to be treated as a repeatable physical event rather than a miniature object. It is defined by how it participates in interactions and how it shows up in measurements, not by a permanent shape or a fixed trajectory. It behaves consistently under the same conditions, even though its behavior cannot be reduced to ordinary motion. This explains why particles pass through matter without damage, why they can be created from energy, and why they can vanish in interactions without leaving pieces behind. Their behavior follows strict physical rules, but those rules are not the rules of solid objects. Space itself plays an active role. It carries physical properties and supports fields. These fields can be excited, and those excitations are what physics identifies as particles. Each particle corresponds to a specific kind of excitation with well-defined properties. This is why every electron is exactly identical to every other electron, not similar, exactly the same. They are not individual items with separate histories. They are the same physical occurrence appearing wherever the conditions allow it. Particles are not mysterious pieces of matter. They serve as the way the universe organizes interactions into discrete, countable events, rather than letting them dissolve into continuity. That perspective opens a deeper question, one that changes how existence itself is described. If particles are events rather than objects, what does it really mean for something to exist? To answer that, the safest move is to strip the word particle down as far as it will go and rebuild it carefully without relying on pictures borrowed from everyday life. At the most fundamental level known today, a particle is not a tiny object moving through empty space. It is a localized excitation of a physical field. That sentence sounds abstract, so let's slow it down and unpack it piece by piece. Physics describes the universe in terms of fields that exist everywhere. There is an electron field, a photon field, a quark field, and others. These fields are not things placed inside space. They are part of what space itself contains. They assign physical properties to every location, even when nothing dramatic seems to be happening there. Most of the time, these fields sit in their lowest possible state. Nothing noticeable occurs. But under the right conditions, a field can be excited. That excitation carries energy, momentum, and other properties. When such an excitation appears in a detector in a consistent, repeatable way, physics labels it a particle. So a particle is not something inside the field, it is something the field does. That distinction matters. It explains why particles are identical. Every electron carries the same charge and mass because each one is the same excitation of the same field. There is no manufacturing process, no variation, no individuality to account for. The field allows only one version of that excitation. It also explains why particles can be created and destroyed. When enough energy is supplied, a field can support an excitation. When that energy is removed or transferred, the excitation disappears. Nothing breaks. Nothing leaves fragments behind. The field simply returns to a lower energy state. This already contradicts a deeply rooted expectation that existence requires a permanent object. In modern physics, existence is tied to allowed activity within fields, not to enduring material pieces. Now let's look at motion. A particle is often imagined as traveling along a path, occupying one position after another, like a bead sliding on a wire. That picture works for baseballs and planets. It does not survive careful experiments at small scales. When physicists attempt to track a particle's position over time, the results do not trace out a single line. Instead, they form probability distributions. Predictions succeed only when the particle is treated as something spread out during its evolution, even though measurements always record a localized outcome. This is not a failure of instruments. It is not due to disturbance or lack of skill. It reflects how excitations of fields behave. Between interactions, the excitation is described by a mathematical object that encodes all the possible ways it could appear if measured. That description evolves smoothly and predictably. When an interaction occurs, one specific outcome is recorded. The rules governing both stages are precise and well tested. Trying to force this behavior into the picture of a tiny object following a hidden route leads to contradictions. Predictions fail. Experiments disagree. The idea of a particle as a small moving thing simply does not carry enough structure to describe what actually happens. This is where everyday reasoning runs into trouble. Everyday reasoning assumes that things have properties whether or not they are measured. It assumes position, motion, and identity exist independently of interaction. At small scales, those assumptions break down. Properties are not attached permanently to a particle. They are defined through interaction. A particle does not carry a position the way a coin carries a scratch. Position is something that appears when the particle interacts with something capable of registering location. The same applies to momentum, energy transfer, and other measurable quantities. That does not make particles vague or ill-defined. It makes them context-dependent in a precise way. This is why physics can calculate particle behavior with extraordinary accuracy, while everyday descriptions fail. The calculations are built around fields, excitations, and interactions. The everyday pictures are not. There is another point that often causes confusion. Particles are sometimes described as waves. This does not mean a particle is a ripple in water or a vibration of matter. It means the mathematical description governing how a field excitation evolves resembles the equations used for waves. The similarity lies in structure, not substance. The wave-like aspects describe how possibilities spread and combine. The particle-like aspects describe how interactions register as discrete events. Both aspects refer to the same underlying entity. Refusing either description leads to errors. Keeping both leads to reliable predictions. At this stage, the concept of a particle should feel less like a thing and more like a rule-based occurrence. It is defined by the field it excites, the properties that excitation carries, the ways it can interact, the consistent manner in which those interactions appear. Nothing extra is added, nothing vague is required. Particles are how the universe packages interactions so that energy, momentum, and information move in discrete amounts rather than flowing without limit. They are countable not because someone decided to count them, but because the underlying fields allow only certain excitations and forbid others. This is why particle physics works so well. It does not rely on analogy, it relies on constraints. And that leads naturally to a deeper realization. If particles are excitations of fields, and fields fill all of space, then what appears solid, separate, and object-like at large scales is built from processes that are anything but. Matter is not assembled from tiny stones. It is assembled from permitted activity. That idea does not weaken the concept of a particle. It makes it strong enough to describe reality accurately. That conclusion places particles as expressions of a deeper physical structure rather than the final layer of description. Once fields take center stage, many puzzles that seemed disconnected begin to line up. Creation and disappearance of particles no longer feel dramatic. High-energy collisions and accelerators convert concentrated energy into new excitations. Detectors register them. Later, interactions transfer that energy elsewhere and the excitations fade. Nothing mysterious enters or leaves reality. The accounting remains exact because the fields never vanish. This perspective also explains why empty space refuses to behave like emptiness. Even in regions stripped of matter, fields remain present. They fluctuate. They carry structure. Those fluctuations influence measurable outcomes, from forces between objects to the stability of atoms. Space functions less like a container and more like an active participant. Another consequence follows directly. Particles possess properties only because the fields enforce them. Charge, mass, and spin arise from how an excitation couples to other fields. The values appear fixed because the rules allow no alternatives. Nature does not choose an electron's charge. The field permits only that option. Attempts to picture a particle as a tiny solid core quickly fall apart here. Solidity emerges only when enormous numbers of excitations lock together through electromagnetic interactions. At smaller scales, nothing behaves like a hard object. Interactions dominate. Resistance, rigidity, and contact emerge later as collective effects. This explains why particles pass through one another so easily. Two excitations can occupy the same region of space because fields overlap without obstruction. Interactions occur only when coupling rules allow them. Without coupling, nothing collides, nothing bounces, nothing blocks the way. The idea of location changes as well. A particle appears at a specific place when an interaction occurs that transfers energy locally. Between interactions, the excitation remains distributed according to strict mathematical rules. That distribution does not represent ignorance or lack of information. It represents the full physical description available. Here, everyday reasoning struggles, because everyday reasoning treats properties as permanent possessions. In particle physics, properties appear through interaction. Position arises when something records position. Momentum arises when something exchanges momentum. Energy transfer defines energy measurement. Remove the interaction and the property loses operational meaning. This does not weaken prediction, it strengthens it. Calculations based on field behavior predict outcomes with precision unmatched by any classical picture. Particle accelerators, semiconductor devices, and medical imaging all rely on this framework working exactly as described. Another common expectation fails at this point, the idea that smaller always means simpler. Particles appear small, yet their description requires layers of structure absent from larger objects. A rock follows simple equations because internal complexity averages out. A single excitation exposes the full machinery. This also clarifies why probability enters the story. The equations governing fields do not predict single outcomes, they predict distributions of outcomes. Each interaction selects one allowed result. Repeat the process many times and the distribution emerges with remarkable consistency. Probability here reflects structure, not ignorance. The rules constrain outcomes so tightly that the statistical pattern remains fixed across experiments. Randomness appears only within boundaries that never shift. At this stage, the word particle serves a very specific role. It labels a unit of interaction that carries definite amounts of conserved quantities. Energy arrives in packets. Momentum transfers in packets. Charge exchanges in packets. Fields enforce this discreteness. Without particles, interactions would smear continuously. Energy would leak without limit. Stability would collapse. Atoms, chemistry, and matter would fail to form. Particles exist because the rules require discrete carriers. This also explains why particles feel countable. Counting does not impose discreteness. Discreteness allows counting. One excitation registers as one event. Two excitations register as two. No interpretation required. Even forces look different from this viewpoint. Forces describe how field values change across space. Particles respond by exchanging excitations. What feels like attraction or repulsion arises from permitted exchanges governed by symmetry and conservation. The language of particles survives because it remains useful. Detectors click, tracks appear, experiments record events. Talking about particles keeps communication efficient. But beneath that language lies the field-based structure doing the real work. This dual description causes confusion only when taken too literally. Treating particles as tiny objects leads to contradictions. Treating them as abstract mathematical ghosts misses their tangible effects. The field excitation view holds both sides together without strain. At larger scales, this picture fades into familiarity. Vast numbers of excitations interact, average out, and lock into stable arrangements. Tables resist pressure. Walls block motion. Objects occupy locations persistently. None of this contradicts particle physics. It emerges from it. Seen from far enough away, the details disappear. Seen closely, the machinery shows itself. Particles therefore occupy a precise conceptual role. They mark where and when interactions register. They carry conserved quantities between systems. They arise from fields and return to fields without residue. Nothing extra hides underneath. Nothing simpler waits beyond. That realization changes how matter, space, and interaction fit together. Reality does not consist of objects floating in emptiness. It consists of structured activity governed by rules that allow certain excitations and forbid others. Particles sit at the boundary between possibility and record. They translate continuous field behavior into discrete events that can be counted, measured, and compared. That role explains their strange behavior without reducing it. It also explains why attempts to force them into everyday categories repeatedly fail. The universe does not operate on familiar categories at small scales. It operates on permission and constraint. Particles simply follow those permissions with absolute consistency. At this stage, the picture is complete enough to use with confidence. Particles are not tiny, solid pieces hidden inside matter. They are localized excitations of fields that exist throughout space. Fields determine which excitations are allowed, which properties they carry, and how they interact. When an excitation transfers energy, momentum, or charge in a measurable way, physics records that event as a particle. This framework explains why particles are identical, why they can appear and disappear, why they pass through one another, and why interactions occur only under specific conditions. No extra ingredients are needed, no internal cores, no missing mechanisms. What physics knows with very high confidence is how particles behave, how they are produced, how they interact, and how their properties arise from fields and symmetries. These descriptions are tested continuously in particle accelerators, laboratories, electronic devices, and medical imaging systems. The agreement between prediction and measurement reaches levels of precision unmatched in other areas of science. Physics also knows that particles are not the final layer of description. They are effective representations of deeper structures. Fields underlie them. Symmetries restrict those fields. Conservation laws limit what can occur. This hierarchy is not philosophical preference. It is enforced by experimental results. What physics does not yet know is why the fields have the specific properties they do. It does not know why these fields exist instead of others, or why their strengths take the particular values measured. A complete framework that unifies all known fields at every scale has not yet been achieved. These limits are clearly recognized rather than hidden. That distinction matters. Physics is not uncertain about particles. It is precise about where certainty ends. From this perspective, matter is not assembled from rigid pieces stacked together. It arises from repeated interactions that remain stable because the rules allow them to. Solidity, shape, and persistence emerge from enormous numbers of excitations exchanging forces in tightly constrained ways. At larger scales, the details average out. At smaller scales, the underlying structure becomes visible. This also explains why the same particle language applies across very different situations. The electron in a wire, the electron in an atom, and the electron recorded by a detector are not different entities. They are the same excitation interacting within different environments. The surroundings change, the governing rules do not. The takeaway is direct and practical. Particles are how the universe makes interactions discrete. They are how conserved quantities move in finite amounts. They permit stability without locking everything in place, and variation without losing order. Without them, atoms would not hold together, chemistry would not operate, and matter would fail to persist. Thinking this way replaces the image of a universe built from tiny objects with one built from a loud activity. Nothing becomes vague, nothing loses precision. The description gains consistency across scales. When physics speaks about particles, It is not describing little things dotting through empty space. It is describing how the underlying structure of reality registers interactions in countable, reliable ways. That perspective does not make the world harder to deal with. It makes the world workable.
If you think you're dumb, congratulations. You just proved you can think. Because the real fool is the one who never asks anything. You're not dumb. And I'm going to prove it to you right now. Every human brain, without exception, starts with the same foundation. No brain comes with a label that says smart or stupid. Physics shows us that the brain is just like any other muscle in your body. If you train it, it grows. If you neglect it, it weakens. There's no fixed destiny written somewhere saying one person was born a genius and another was born to fail. What actually exists are thought habits that either strengthen or weaken your mental power. Now, imagine you never trained one of your legs. What would happen? You'd probably look like those gym guys who only work out their arms and completely forget about leg day. It would be weak, with no strength to run. But that wouldn't mean you were born without muscles. It would only mean you never trained them. The same thing happens with the brain. Most people simply don't train it the right way. They use their brain like a cheap calculator, not like a brilliant laboratory. That's why they feel slow, stuck, incapable. But the truth is, all it takes is changing the way you use your mind to realize you've got infinite potential inside you. Now pay close attention. The first thing you need to understand is that intelligence is not about memorizing facts. Intelligence is the ability to explain things in a simple way. The method is this. If you can't explain something to a child, you don't really understand it yet. And that's the first secret to proving you're not done. When you learn something, try to explain it out loud, as if you were teaching it. That's how you start working out your brain. Just don't forget to train your legs while you're at it, all right? Your brain is forced to organize the internal mess. It takes scattered bits of information like loose Lego pieces and has to build them into a coherent castle. This activates different areas: memory, language, creativity. It's as if regions that usually work separately suddenly come together in a grand orchestra. When you try to explain what you've learned, you're not just repeating it like a parrot. You're rewriting the knowledge inside your own head. And here's the key. If you want to learn any subject more easily, simplify it. The brain loves to turn everything into complications. It almost feels like the harder something sounds, the smarter a person thinks they are. But real intelligence is taking what's complicated and making it so simple that even a child can understand it. Want to see it in action? Take a look at this little monster of an equation. Beautiful, isn't it? Looks like something a NASA genius would scribble on a chalkboard. Just looking at it, most people freeze up and think, that's it, I'm dumb, I'll never get this. But the truth is, what's really happening here is simple. All of that is nothing more than a complicated way of representing basic relationships between numbers. For example, right in the middle of all that chaos, you could say, this is just a fancy way of calculating the difference of two squares. And when you simplify it, it's really just x plus y. What looked like a mysterious equation is simply a sum in disguise. And that's the secret. When you simplify, the brain breathes. It understands the essence. Math isn't about memorizing giant formulas. It's about recognizing patterns. And the same goes for any field: physics, biology, finance. If you learn to search for the essence, the why behind things, suddenly everything becomes clear. No one is dumb when facing a hard problem. What we really have are bad explanations, messy and overcomplicated, that turn something simple into a maze. But when you force your mind to translate things into simple terms, you realize the brain was never the problem. The problem was always the way you were trying to learn. And it's not just in math. We simplify in physics, too. Someone walks in with authority and says, the law of inertia describes that a body in motion tends to remain in motion. Sounds complicated, right? Want me to simplify? It's just this. If you kick a ball, it keeps rolling until something stops it. That's it. In biology, the same story. Someone says in a serious voice, photosynthesis is the biochemical process by which autotrophic organisms convert light energy. Whew, exhausting. Want the simple version? It's just the way plants invented to eat sunlight. Done. no mystery. And you know what's best about all this? This way of learning is actually more fun. Because let's be honest, traditional studying is boring as hell. It's like trying to memorize an entire phone book just to look smart. But when you learn to simplify, when you turn the complicated into something simple, that's when the real fun begins. That's the moment the genius is born, the one who enjoys asking questions, who smiles when discovering the why behind things, who takes pleasure in turning mystery into clarity. Learning is like playing, because when you're having fun, the brain doesn't see it as an obligation. It sees it as a game. And with games, we keep going. Have you noticed? You can play video games for hours without getting tired. But 15 minutes of a boring lecture feels like medieval torture. Why? Because games have challenge, curiosity, fun. When you bring that same spirit into your studies, you unlock a superpower. Imagine this. You take a tough math problem, or some crazy concept in physics, and instead of thinking, oh my God, I'll never get this, you think, okay, how can I turn this into a joke? How can I explain this to my 10-year-old cousin and make him laugh? In that moment, you stop being a slave to studying and start becoming its master. And then something magical happens. You actually start looking forward to the next problem. You get curious. You start laughing at your own discoveries. And it's at that exact point that the genius is born, when learning stops being an obligation and turns into fun. And here's the paradox. The secret of intelligence isn't memorizing answers, it's asking why. A person who asks too many questions might seem dumb to others, but what most people don't realize is that curiosity has been essential for every human discovery. If Isaac Newton hadn't asked, why did this apple fall from the tree instead of shooting up into the sky? Gravity might never have been formalized. Think about it. What everyone else saw as something ordinary, an apple falling, Newton turned into a question. And from that question came one of the most powerful laws in physics. Albert Einstein? He didn't create the theory of relativity because he memorized formulas. He started by asking, what if I could ride alongside a beam of light? What would I see? A crazy, almost childish question that any serious teacher would have called nonsense. But it was exactly that nonsense that opened the door to one of the most revolutionary theories in history. Even everyday inventions were born this way. Why does water heat up when it boils? Why can a piece of metal turn into an electric current? Why does sound move through the air? Every breakthrough that now feels obvious started with someone annoying the world by asking simple questions. What most people call stupidity is really just the inability to ask. And what they call genius is nothing more than stubborn curiosity. Newton wasn't magical. Einstein wasn't superhuman. They were just stubborn enough to keep asking when everyone else was saying, we already know that, stop bothering us. And here's the turning point. Genius is born when you take seriously the questions everyone else ignores. If the apple falls, ask why. If the shadow moves, ask why. If a 500-ton airplane flies while a little bird drops dead from a tree, ask why. The more you let those stupid questions bother you, the closer you are to brilliance. And here's a truth almost nobody talks about. You're not dumb for asking. You're only dumb when you care too much about what other people think of you. Because that, deep down, is what kills curiosity. You wanted to raise your hand in class and ask, but then you thought, they'll laugh at me. They'll think I don't know anything. But guess what? It's exactly by not asking that you stay not knowing it. A genius is the person who simply doesn't care. He asks, he gets it wrong, he gets it right, he asks again, until he understands. And here comes a crucial point, emotional intelligence. There's no use in training your brain if you're still a slave to other people's opinions. A brilliant mind isn't just one that understands physics or math. It's one that understands itself. It's the kind of mind that doesn't get shaken by stupid criticism, doesn't compare itself to the neighbor, and doesn't fall apart because someone said, that's obvious. Pay close attention now. Anyone who lives worried about judgment will never discover anything new. Every bold idea they have, their first thought is what their friends will say, what the family will say, what the experts will comment. The result? They spend their entire lives hiding their questions, and with them, hiding their true potential. You want to be seen as intelligent? Then stop trying to look intelligent. Focus on being curious, on simplifying, on laughing at your own mistakes, and on learning quickly. That is far more rare and far more valuable than pretending to know everything. In the end, the real genius is not the one with ready-made answers, but the one with the courage to ask, the discipline to search, and the maturity not to care about the audience. The same people who laugh at you today for asking will applaud you tomorrow for discovering what they never had the courage to look for. So, what should you start doing today to train your mind like a genius? First, cultivate curiosity. Ask why about everything. There's no such thing as a stupid question. There's only the fear of looking stupid. And you already know, you're not dumb for asking, you're dumb for caring too much about what others think. Second, practice simple explanation. Every time you learn something, try to teach it out loud as if you were explaining it to a child. If you can't, it means you don't really understand it yet. Go back, simplify it, and explain again. That's the workout that truly strengthens your brain. Third, take action. Just thinking isn't enough. Solve problems, write, test your ideas. Action is the final exam that shows whether you truly understood or if you were just memorizing. Fourth, practice concentration. Stop letting yourself get distracted every 5 minutes. When you focus on one single thing, your mind works like a laser. Fifth, build self-confidence. Don't wait for applause. Every genius has been called crazy at some point. The difference is they kept going anyway. Curiosity plus simple explanation plus action plus concentration plus self-confidence. That is the manual that proves you were never dumb. You just needed to learn how to use your brain the right way. And remember this, inside your head you carry the same kind of brain that wrote symphonies, that built rockets, that discovered gravity, that decoded DNA. You have a brain capable of finding the cure for cancer, of creating technologies that don't even exist yet, of transforming your life and the lives of millions of others. The problem was never you. The problem was believing you were limited, that you had no talent, that you weren't born a genius. But the truth is, the genius has always been inside you, waiting for you to stop being afraid to ask, to stop going silent in front of what you don't understand. Never forget, every time you ask why, you open a new door inside your mind. Each answer leads to another question, and it's in that endless path that the greatest ideas are born. The world is not driven by those who know all the answers. It is driven by those who have the courage to ask the right questions. So please, never stop asking why. Never let shame or judgment kill your curiosity, because it's exactly that curiosity, that restless spark inside you, that can change everything. You're not dumb. You never were. You're an explorer, and your mind is the greatest unexplored territory that exists. Take care of it, train it, simplify, focus, trust, and keep asking, because every single why could be the beginning of the next great discovery. And now I want you to do something simple but powerful. Leave your comment down below. Write, "I will never stop asking why." Declare it, because every word you write is a commitment to your own growth. And don't forget to like this video, because that shows it truly resonated with you. Subscribe to the channel to keep receiving content that challenges your mind and expands your worldview. Think about it. Maybe a single click today could be the start of a massive transformation in your life. So comment, like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Because here you don't just get information, you get tools to think like a true genius.